Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of Dog Walk Talk. I'm your host, Jake Roos, and with me as always, well, not as frequently always these days, but glad to have him back this time. It's Palmer Toms. PT, what's good, brother?
Doing well, doing well. I had a frequent listener say, man, you've gotten a little harsh on me in some of these openings recently. So good to be back here and be able to stand up for myself now.
Yeah. You got to defend your honor, man. We only make fun of you when you're not around. So that's what good friends do, right?
But hey, I mean, you were complimenting Chad and understandably so.
Hey, hard not to compliment that guy. He busts his ass, does a great job for us over at On3, and especially helps out DawgsHQ a lot. He's tied in as well as anybody in the country when it comes to recruiting news, especially that around Georgia.
One of many reasons why this is the best time to subscribe to DawgsHQ.
Hey, look at the kid. He's learning to pitch. I like it. It's a buck right now. Depending on when you hear this, this is being recorded Wednesday, October 27th. You have until currently, I think, Friday, the 29th, but we may extend it a little bit. So just get over to DawgsHQ and check it out. We got plenty of stuff for you to check out. Some great film breakdown pieces from John Richt. Those have been killing lately. And just having some fun over on the board, writing some stories. I mean, it's a good time. And like I tell people, man, it's an opportunity for people to get in on the ground floor of something and build the community the way that they want it. I think that's the big thing. You can create something fresh and kind of shape it how you see fit. So that's what makes it exciting to me. What Georgia fans are most excited about, though, right now is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Yes, I still call it that. And yes, I will go to my grave calling it that because that's the coolest name for a neutral site game in America. Georgia versus Florida in Jacksonville this weekend. Should be a wild one. Halloween weekend in Jacksonville. I mean, last time I was there for a Halloween game, the talent was strong, not only on the field, but in the streets as well. So, it's going to be a big one. And this is a different look Florida team, I think, than what Georgia's faced the last couple of years. Frankly, kind of down right now. I think it's fair to say 3 losses on the season. I mean, just an unexpected situation for Florida. Their playoff hopes dashed already. In my mind, this is their Super Bowl, man. This is their national championship. If they could knock off the number 1 team and it be Georgia, that would really, really probably save a lot of Gator hearts. What do you think on that one, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, you said it as best as anyone can. This Florida team is a little bit down. The last 3 times these two teams have matched up, it's been a top 10 matchup. And the East has been kind of on the line, at least control of the East.
Sure.
And that is not the case at all on Saturday. Georgia has a chance to clinch the East on Saturday, if my math is correct. And don't quote me on that because I'm a journalism major here. But I think if Georgia can pull off a win over Florida and Mississippi State upsets Kentucky in the 7:00 time slot, the Bulldogs would have clinched the East with only 2 SEC games remaining and Kentucky having 2 SEC losses and Georgia having the head-to-head over them. So if my math is correct there, Georgia has a chance to clinch the East, but Florida is far out of that conversation. The big conversation with the Gators this week and quite frankly, the Bulldogs too, has been the quarterbacks. In Gainesville, it's the question of Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson. Jones has started all 7 games for the Gators so far this season. Richardson has finished out several of those games that Jones has started. And most recently, the near comeback against LSU, they had to put Richardson in to have any chance of beating the Tigers, which they didn't do. And so, to me, looking at a little bit of film of Florida and talking to people, doing my research on the Gators, to me, the more explosive of the 2 quarterbacks is Anthony Richardson. He's able to press the ball downfield more so than Emory Jones. Emory Jones is probably more of a runner than he is a thrower. When teams have been able to take away that running threat from Jones, he's been forced to throw and it hasn't gone well. I mean, Florida leads as a team. Florida leads the SEC in interceptions thrown. Now, whether that's all Jones or all Richardson, it's a combination of the two. But when you're able to take away that running element from both these guys, I mean, they are 1 and 2 on the team in rushing. When you're able to take away that rushing element from these guys and put some pressure on them to make plays with their arm, things haven't gone necessarily as well for Florida. So to me, the conversation about Florida starts there, and it's going to be interesting to see who they end up starting on Saturday. My guess is that they go with Emory Jones, just because that's kind of been Dan Mullen's ride or die guy. It was the first quarterback he signed at Florida. He's a coach that prides himself on his quarterbacks. When going back to his history as an offensive coordinator and a head coach at Mississippi State, and so to me, I think Emory Jones is the guy that's going to start. I think Anthony Richardson is the guy that's going to finish this game. And you've seen Dan Mullen want to get Emory Jones in these games in the past. Even when they had Felipe Franks, when they had Kyle Trask, Emory Jones was still a part of the game plan. And I think he's going to be a part of this game plan on Saturday. Now, whether he is the bigger part of the game plan, I don't know. I think that's probably going to be Anthony Richardson. I think that they're probably going to have a short leash with Emory Jones, but my guess is that he does get the start, his 8th consecutive, actually would be his 9th consecutive. I believe he started the Cotton Bowl last year against Oklahoma, but his eighth consecutive this season.
Yeah, I don't know on that situation, man. I tend to lean toward Richardson getting the start personally, just because I think that he gives them the best chance to win. And I think that I think that Florida's in a situation where, like you said, you are going to see both guys. I don't think who starts really matters. I think that they're going to play hot hand really with it and see who's the guy who can kind of get some momentum rolling. In my opinion, that's going to be Richardson. If there's an area where it feels like you can attack this Georgia team, to me, it's the secondary. I think that those guys, those corners, have done a great job. They're grading out on PFF fantastically. But the fact of the matter is, you got a much better chance taking on guys in the deep field than you do this front seven. And I think that, they've got playmakers there at Florida. Richardson's got a live arm, man. He can get out there and spin it and chuck it downfield. I think that that's what makes the most sense. I think you saw with Bo Nix, for example, what rushing as a quarterback was going to do for you. And it wasn't much. I mean, these guys are pretty much built to stop that run, and they maintain great gap discipline, stay in and hoe their row, and they just don't get distracted a lot. And so Georgia is lethal for that reason. I think Richardson the guy for that reason. On the flip side of that, though, Georgia coming into this one, what would a Georgia Florida game be without a little bit of quarterback controversy for the Bulldogs, man? I mean, year in and year out, it seems like we got a little something going on in there. JT Daniel back, perceivably healthy by all accounts from Kirby Smart this week. Said he didn't look to have any limitations or anything like that. Now it becomes the arrival of the moment that we've talked about now for a couple of weeks, which was what will happen when JT Daniels is healthy. Stetson Bennett has played really admirably in his absence. I mean, has really done a great job for Georgia, played efficiently, carried them through some games. I tend to think that this is a situation where it will be like Florida. I think that it will be kind of a hot hand. I think it's going to be the guy who gets the momentum. I think Georgia's probably scripted it in to have a couple series for each guy to begin. Palmer, who do you think I won't even say probably. Who do you think gets the most work under center for the Bulldogs on Saturday?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly an interesting, situation and the question that everyone wants answered. Like Florida's situation, I don't think that we're going to get an answer to this until Saturday.
Sure.
I'm going to give credit to one of my good friends, Connor Haverman here, who I told him, you subscribe to the site and I'll give you a shout out on the show. He gave me this idea and made this comparison here. That this situation is sort of similar to what Georgia faced in 2017. That you have a guy that you come into the season expecting as to be the starter. He gets hurt and you turn things over to, the guy that you expected to be your backup. Now, Jake Fromm in 2017 leads them, in some big games, some big wins. Once Eason was healthy, they ended up rolling with Fromm because he had gotten the team behind him.
Yep.
And it feels like it's a very similar situation here. You expected JT Daniels to be the guy. And, obviously after that first game, he ends up missing one, coming back for two, and then missing three. But, in that time that he's been on the sidelines, you've had Stetson Bennett take this team, by the horns. I mean, they absolutely play, fully expecting that they can and will win with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. And so I think it's incredibly hard to take that away from Stetson, take this team away from Stetson. Now, if I'm the coach, I do it. I turn it back over to JT Daniels because I think this offense is capable of so much more with JT Daniels at the quarterback position. I think in turn, you've seen it. He averages over 250 yards per game in the 7 games that he started at Georgia. Georgia's been able to get the ball downfield to, and make the most of these wide receivers that they have recruited over the last several years, whether it's Jermaine Burton, Marcus Rosemy, George Pickens when he was in there, and other guys, Kyrus Jackson has been a part of that. Arian Smith, again, when he's been healthy, AD Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, guys like that have been a part of, you're able to see their full skill set with JT Daniels at the quarterback position because they're able to extend the field so much. Now, that's not to say that Stetson Bennett can't get the ball downfield, but I don't think that that's his MO. I think his MO is more these short passes across the middle, not necessarily wanting to work the ball to the outside, and moving the chains, being able to make plays with his legs, extend plays, roll out of the pocket, make the throw on the run. That's not JT Daniels' MO. His is more stand in the pocket and get the ball downfield. Now, which do I think is a better recipe for Georgia on offense? I think it's probably that ability to work the ball down the field because you know what you've got in the run game with Georgia. You're going to be able to work off of that run game with the play action. And so when you've got a run game like the Bulldogs do, and you're able to get teams coming downhill trying to stop you at the line of scrimmage, well, that means that you've got guys that can probably run past these defensive backs and get into that, second, third level of the defense and make some plays downfield, create some separation. And so to me, that skill set suits JT Daniels a lot better than it does Stetson Bennett. Again, not saying that Bennett can't do it. I just think that Daniels is a little bit better at it. And so to me, I think having seen what we saw at practice on Monday, both quarterbacks were working. JT Daniels was the first quarterback up in the line to, granted they were working on handoffs, but he was the first quarterback, followed by Stetson Bennett, followed by Carson Beck, followed by Brock Vandagriff. To me, that's your quarterback depth chart that you're going to see because I don't necessarily see a reason to try and to me, I feel like anytime I've seen Georgia do something like that in terms of go through these drills, whether it was, the quarterback and the center snapping pregame, you've seen consistency in what Georgia does. You see that first quarterback working with that first center. He's the first guy to make the throws. He's the guy to lead them out of the tunnel. And Monday at practice, that appeared to be JT Daniels. So my guess is that JT Daniels gets the start on Saturday. Now, like you said, I do think that Stetson Bennett is going to be ready to play. I think that's what he's been built on. That's how he's gotten his opportunities in being ready to play. I think if you were to, have JT healthy and start Stetson, I don't know what JT's mind would be like there. But what you've got in the mindset of Stetson Bennett when you hand the keys over to someone else. He's still ready to play. I think that he's got that backup quarterback gunslinger mentality that has helped him so much in some of these games that he started. It can also help him if he has to come into a game like he did against Arkansas, like he did midweek in that UAB week. He's able to step in when his name is called and make plays. So I think I'm with you there. I think you're probably going to see both these quarterbacks ready to play on Saturday. I think Daniels gets the start, and it may be a situation like we saw against South Carolina where they go 2-1, 2-1. Yeah. But, to me, I would rather see, if I'm a Georgia fan, if I'm a Georgia coach, whatever, I would rather try and let JT Daniels get back in a rhythm because he's missed so much time. I don't know that you want to have him on the field, off the field, on the field, off the field. Let him, feel comfortable, work through some of these, not necessarily growing pains, but knock off the rust a little bit.
I think that's a really dangerous proposition, though, because you've got a guy who's not got rust. I mean, you got a guy who there's not necessarily. So
then are you starting Stetson Bennett?
I don't know, man. That's a tough call, dude. That it really is. I mean, I don't know that I kind of maintain what I said earlier. It doesn't really matter to me who starts this game. I think that it's going to be the guy who gets in there. And if you can create a quick touchdown strike right off the bat, I think maybe then the whole rotation series kind of falls to the wayside a little bit. Now, if you're, kind of having a punt or, kicking it out of bounds or having to, work a lot of third downs and not able to convert and you're turning it back over to them. Yeah, then I think that the rotation makes a lot of sense. But if there's a guy who's able to get out there and get this thing going quick, why not stick with that? I don't see any reason to, as you were saying, like that, to me, that's just messing with chemistry. And if you feel like you've got the juju going, roll with it, man. I think that Georgia's done a good job of that all year, in fact, and they've got some great chemistry on this team. I think that's pretty clear to anybody who's watched them. But, I think that I tend to think Stetson will get the majority of the work on Saturday. I do, just because I think for the reason I just mentioned, there's just there's no rust to knock off. There's no creating anything. It's all in place. Now, do I think JT Daniels is perhaps the better and more talented option? Yes, I do. But I don't know that at this point, I don't know that at this point you can mess with what Stetson's got going on, man. And he's got it going pretty well. And I mean, he did last year as well. I mean, we look back to that Alabama game, the first half wasn't getting a lot of help from, his defense in that one. So, I mean,
you had him up 14-0 against Florida.
That's what I'm saying, man. I mean, that's a great point as well. So I don't know. I tend to think he gets the majority of the work this week, and I think it's just a question we're going to have to deal with every week for the rest of this season.
So Jake, if you're putting money on the line here, who's getting the start on Saturday?
I think
I'll go with JT Daniels.
I'm going to say Stetson gets the start on Saturday. I think
it's like we've got ourselves a friendly wager.
Yeah. I think that he's earned the start on Saturday. I think that he's earned the start Saturday. I think that he's earned it from what he's done this season. I think he's probably earned it from his performance against Florida last year and what he was able to help him do. And like I said, I think it's going to be a rotational thing. So
another question here. If like you say, Stetson has earned it and he gets that start and he's not knocking off the rust like JT Daniels would be, are you just waiting to see, are you pulling the rug out from underneath him as soon as something goes wrong and turning it over to JT Daniels? Is that how JT Daniels gets on the field? Or is it a rotation of 2-1 Stetson Bennett with the 2 and JT with the 1?
I think that the situation comes down to how does it play out? Like I said, if you've got that fast, hot start, I don't think you mess with whoever's in charge. I think you let that guy roll. Do I think that if he makes a mistake, that he gets the rug pulled out from under him? No, not necessarily either. But I do think that creates the scenario where suddenly they say, "Oh, look, we've game planned for the rotation all week. Now we're doing it. We're going to do it." So it's a way to kind of offset that, I guess that notion of like, "Hey, you're screwing up," and we're kind of giving you the old hook here. But
if let's say Stetson does get the start and he, they roll with him and it's, they're not gonna, pull the rug out from underneath him if things go a little bit wrong. How many, how much does Georgia have to be down by to see, the backup quarterback come in, just like Stetson did against Arkansas. And I can't remember exactly how many they were down by against the Razorbacks last season. How what does it have to look like for JT Daniels to come into this game? If Stetson does get the start, which again, I think that JT gets the start.
Yeah. No, I think that it probably kind of looks like, I don't know. The opportunity to me feels like it's, like I said, man, it's to me, the idea of the hot hand is just what you got to go with. That's it. I mean, that's what it's got to all boil down to. I think that's probably what it'll boil down to on who gets the start is who was hot in practice this week. I think both guys, I mean, this is not a situation where I think one guy has an upper hand. I think that it truly is neck and neck. And for that reason, we're going to be dealing with this question for the rest of the season, in my opinion. I think that it's going to come down to how a guy practices. Yes, game performance will be huge, but I think that Kirby Smart is being genuine when he says that he trusts both of these guys. And I think he's right to say that. I mean, there's reasons to put trust in both of these guys. Both of them have done good things for you. So not necessarily, I don't think, like I said, I just don't think it's a huge concern. I think we'll see both guys at some point on Saturday.
We could talk quarterbacks for days. Another thing that Kirby did bring up, and like you said, a lot of this is going to be, in your opinion, a lot of this is going to be based on how they practice. That's exactly what Kirby Smart has said throughout the week.
I believe him. I think that it would be disingenuous for him to not roll with that, because the guys on that field know the same thing. They know who's performing better. And it would go against what Kirby's philosophy has been, which is best man plays. And if you change that with one position, suddenly you're going to have people looking around saying, all right, well, what about this guy now? Is he, are we starting to play favorites, or are we rolling with the truly best option? The guy who performed.
And I mean, I saw that out there at practice on Monday when we were out there, looking at the wide receivers where Georgia could get some guys back. You saw Jermaine Burton running with the twos, and initially that's shocking. And you're like, well, why is he running with the twos? Well, Ladd McConkey has done nothing to give him his spot back.
No doubt.
And so, you are seeing that there, the best man plays, it's based on performance, not, rankings or, what you did for me last year. It's based on what you're doing for me this week, today in practice, this past week in practice, what you're doing for me now. And so, you've seen Ladd McConkey step up. Karis Jackson is in that first group. AD Mitchell, that's probably not the first group that you would have expected to see.
I don't think anybody went into this year anticipating that rotation would be like heavily leaned upon in any circumstance. Not at all. Meanwhile,
you've got guys that are working their way back, and that Kirby Smart seems hopeful that they will get back this week. Jermaine Burton, Marcus Rosemy, Arian Smith, three guys that you probably expected to be contributors coming into this season that are, granted, they've been banged up and that they have, missed some time. But you're seeing them on the second tier of that two deep and not the first tier like you might have expected. Yep. So, certainly an interesting, couple storylines to follow there between the quarterbacks, the wide receivers. I mean, you've got some running backs that you've got to look at, with Kendall Milton going down for a couple of weeks here. Kenny McIntosh is working his way back from injury. How does Georgia work with that running back rotation? Is it going to be a two-man show between Zamir White and James Cook? Are you going to be able to get in? Kenny McIntosh is to me, he looked healthy enough to go. And I from what Kirby has told us, he's feeling a lot better. He had been dealing with some hamstring tightness. He's feeling a lot better is what we've heard, but, come Saturday, if that's a little tight, are you going to try and, are you just going to stick to two, or are you going to want to rotate your running backs and maybe give Daijun Edwards some look?
I was going to say, I don't appreciate this Daijun Edwards overlooking, man. I like Daijun Edwards. I think Daijun Edwards is a good player, man. I think he's
and I do too, but he, you've seen Georgia with a 4-man rotation, and he hasn't really been a part of that 4-man rotation.
Yeah, that's true.
Even when, and then, when they were without Kenny Mack, they turned to just a 3-man rotation with Kendall Milton, and they didn't bump Daijun Edwards into that. So that's why I maybe overlook him a little bit. I absolutely agree with you in the fact that he's talented enough to play, and talented enough to, carry the balls several times and be a part of that rotation if Kenny Kenny McIntosh isn't able to go. I don't think that they're going to just go with the 2-man show. I think that you absolutely would have Daijun Edwards ready to be that third guy, ready to be that fourth guy, even if they do go with a 4-man rotation and Kenny McIntosh is ready to go. So, injury concerns on offense, on defense, you're dealing with a little bit of the same. Again, a situation where, best man plays. Dan Jackson was running with the first team and Chris Smith is out there healthy running with the second team. So, is he just going to be immediately plugged back into the lineup because, he's the guy that was your starter week 1? Or are you going to roll with a guy that has been performing very well the last couple of weeks, led the team in tackles at Auburn and had a blocked punt, was part of that blocked punt against Arkansas and has done, like similar to Stetson, has done nothing to hand the keys back over to Chris Smith.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that I tend to think that Chris. I tend to think Chris will get the nod personally, just because I think that is a pure experience thing. And I think that that's one of those situations where on the back end back there, you got Dan Jackson and he's played really well, but Chris, the big game in-game experience, I think really crucial for him, certainly moving forward. Now, let's talk a little bit about the line. 14 and a half roughly looks like what we're looking at here. It's a pretty big spread. I mean, for this kind of rivalry game at a neutral site as well. You think Georgia can cover that one?
When you brought the spread up, I honestly didn't even know what it was because that hasn't been something that has been a topic of conversation this week. I feel like, headed into that Arkansas game, the Auburn game, the Kentucky game, it was very much a topic of conversation of, wow, Georgia is a 20-plus point favorite here in these games against top 10, top 15 opponents. You're looking at an unranked opponent here in Florida, a 14-point spread. I'll take Georgia to cover it. Man, are you giving me 14 or 14 and a half?
I'll give you 14. I'll give you 14.
I might push there. All right.
I
might push on the dot actually, because it's going to be interesting to see what, where that money goes over the next couple of days. If it gets down to 13 and a half, I think Georgia is absolutely covering that. I think that they do win this game and they probably win it by 2 touchdowns. But 2 can very easily turn into 3, can turn into 2.5, a 17-point game. So I think that 14-point spread is probably pretty accurate for a game like this where you don't really know what you've got in either team's quarterbacks. You don't know, you've got this neutral site. You've got a rivalry game. I think there's a lot of different factors that play into both teams coming off of a bye. You've got a lot of different factors that play into this game that don't typically play into a game. That might, if this game was not off of a bye or not neutral site, you would see this, as probably a little bit further of a spread. So I think that Florida is going to put up a fight. I think that in a game like this, a rivalry game, you're always going to see a fight. But it's just a matter of who can withstand that a little bit longer. And I think Georgia is probably the team that can, withstand, the punches a little bit longer.
I'm going to say they don't. That's just my gut feeling right now. Just sitting here, I don't know why. I just think Florida is going to come out super motivated for this one, man. I think that and if they don't, whoo, boy, they're going to be some hot heads in Gainesville. I know that. I mean, all you got to do is look around social media to see people are not pleased with what's going on right down there right now. I mean, you got former players calling out Dan Mullen. You've got fans calling out Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen taking to the press and kind of, making some snarky comments. I mean, it feels like there's a lot of tension going on there. A win here.
And look how that played out for LSU in this game against Florida. With Coach O on the hot seat, they come out playing, with a little bit of fire underneath their butts and they, came out with a win.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that for Florida, like I said, this game matters so much. I do think Georgia wins, but I do think it's probably a little bit closer than that spread might indicate personally. All right. Let's talk a little bit about recruiting, which is something that you and I didn't even have a chance to talk about last week because we were doing our own individual shows. I had a chance to talk with Chad. Big week for Georgia, as we mentioned last week on the trail. But one guy we didn't even get to touch on in the podcast with Chad was Bear Alexander. And I mean, what a get. I mean, there's not much else you can say. I mean, this is a guy who formally committed to Georgia. You felt like once he decommitted, A&M had a substantial lead there. And I even said, and I felt like a dummy for it, but I mean, I had to go with what I was told. Like the day before, I was doing a podcast with some guys and they said, you know, what about Bear Alexander? And I was like, man, I'm sticking A&M until I hear different. And then sure enough, the next day, the kid makes me look like a moron. Not the first time it's happened, not the last it will, but it's a case where, you know, credit Georgia. And I wrote this up in a piece over at DawgsHQ, an opinion piece that I did, basically saying like, hey, you got to give these guys a lot of credit, because one thing I feel like Kirby Smart and the staff has done a fantastic job of is they don't let their feelings get hurt. They're not offended by kids who decommit. They're not offended by kids who choose another school. They're not, you know, there's nothing personal about any of it. They leave that door open, and it's always like, hey, you know, it's if you want to come home, we're always here and we'll always have a light on for you. And sure enough, I think it paid off here huge with Bear Alexander, a dominant player, a kid who can do a little bit of it all. You know, a monster up the middle, you know, so strong, built like a cinder block. I mean, can just impose his will and get out there and push the pocket around. And in replacing Jordan Davis, you need skill like that. Now, the kid's nowhere near as big as Jordan Davis. I mean, almost no one is.
Who is?
Earth. Right. No one on earth is. But you know, he's a kid who he's legit. The rankings are legit. The hype's legit. I think that, like I said, kudos to Kirby and to the staff for bringing him in, and kudos to Trey Scott, man, just out there whipping ass on the recruiting trail. And that comes in the face of, you know, Georgia fans not real impressed with him for the first couple of years. He's really earned their respect now, I think, and just another big pickup. But get over to DawgsHQ and check out. I did 5 next guys to watch, and there are some big names still left out there, buddy. I mean, there's some whales that are still available and you know, decommitted and now back on the market. I mean, it's going to be a wild ride up to signing day. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, you said it there that this staff doesn't get their feelings hurt and you know, leaves that light on. It feels the same way that's kind of how they got Michael Williams. That, you know, he's a guy that they thought they were going to get back in March, and then, you know, visits open up and he ends up committing to USC. They kept pushing, and you know, played that, you know, hey, come home kind of card to it. And you know, you're seeing it with other guys too, whether it's guys that are, you know, currently committed or have recently decommitted. I mean, Jaheim Singletary, Julian Humphrey are 2 guys that were committed. Georgia pushed for them, and now they're both decommitted. Shamar James is another one. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you've seen a lot of guys that, like you said, Georgia is not afraid to push for some of these guys that are committed. Push for some of these guys that they feel like they had strong ties to, and they just decided to go elsewhere. They're not going to shut that door completely. And you know, Smoke Bowie would be a one there that they are, you know, was formerly committed to Georgia, you know, now is committed elsewhere. And so they're still pushing. They're still pushing. And that's, you know, that is what stands out to me about what Georgia has done here. Aluba, another guy that was committed somewhere, and you know, Georgia doesn't flip him, but gets you know, gets him to decommit and then ends up getting the commitment there. So, you know, like you said, a very impressive run for Georgia over the last couple of weeks on the recruiting trail. There was no bye week for Kirby Smart on in terms of recruiting there.
Yeah, me either. that sucked. I was hoping to, you know, hang back and kick my feet up, and man, it was every day. It was an onslaught. So, but no, it was great over at DawgsHQ. We had you covered all the way there. As we're wrapping this one up, Palmer, let's talk a little bit about Jacksonville. I know where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing. You're going to be up there on Frat Beach like you do. I understand. You got the frat swoop ready to go already. I can see that on the pod today. But, I mean, what's when you go to Jacksonville, what are you doing? Where are you drinking? Where are you eating? Where are you hanging out?
You know, it's interesting. I've never gone and covered this game, so I really haven't spent a ton of time in Jacksonville. But like you said, I'll be spending my weekend in St. Simons before I make the trip to Jacksonville for the game Saturday. So my place, I kind of, leave the eating up to, spur of the moment decisions. What doesn't have a huge line with the crowds that are coming down to that area this weekend. But I can guarantee you one thing, Brogan's is going to be my place to be on St. Simon's Island in terms of where I'm going to be drinking. Jake, you're not making the trip as far as I'm concerned, but, where do you think you're going to be, taking in this game and partaking in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party festivities?
Well, hopefully I'll be able to have a few cocktails myself on Saturday prior to the game. I'm going to be hanging with some friends for that one, but a couple of recommendations if you're down that way. I would definitely recommend getting over to Two Dude Seafood. That's an old standard.
I've heard about that one.
Jake Rowe and I have eaten there many, many times. He and I normally make the trip down together, and that's always a lot of fun. And then additionally, the other one would be Taco Lou. Another great spot out there. Burrito Gallery is a pretty outstanding little joint as well. I wish I could remember the name of this. I think it was the last time I went to Georgia, Florida. I ended up in a Jamaican restaurant that was like in the middle of a club. But don't go to that spot is what I'm trying to say about that one. It wasn't what you wanted. So, but
Jake, here's another important question for this weekend.
All right.
While we're on the conversation of drinking and eating, Halloween candy. What's your favorite Halloween candy?
It's an easy one for me. My favorite candy of all time is Skittles. I'm a wild berry Skittles guy. I like the purple pack, so always hook me up with those. But I'm a candy fiend. Now I'm not much of a chocolate guy. I'll tell you that. I'm a big gummy bear guy. I like sour candy a lot. Jolly Rancher is pretty tasty as well. So. But yeah, I'm not like a candy bar dude for the most part. I'll mess with one here every once in a while. But what about you, Palm? What you looking for when you clean your pumpkin out?
See, I'm going to go on the opposite end of the spectrum here. I am going to go with the chocolates, the candy bars, Butterfingers.
Butterfinger. Oh, Butterfinger, dude! You got to dig it out of your teeth, man. It's like
that's the best part. Teeth bar. Man, I just, I'm making myself hungry right now as we're recording about dinner time here on Wednesday night. So let's wrap this thing up, and I might go indulge in a mini Kit Kat that I've got waiting for me downstairs.
He knows right where the candies are at all times, folks. Hey, everybody, get out there, enjoy the cocktail party this weekend. We'll have you fully covered at DawgsHQ. Come check us out, man. If you're not subscribed, we hope that you will be soon. Come check out the special. Like I said, it's the 27th today. The special runs through the 29th. We don't know if we'll extend it. We probably will not, is what it feels like at this moment. So limited time offer, as they say. Get in, check us out. $1 for a year. Can't beat that. Worst case scenario, you hate us and you lost $1. So you can't really complain about that. I appreciate everybody tuning in, though, to Dog Walk Talk this week, and we will see you soon. This has been Dog Walk Talk presented by DawgsHQ.